Good day, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to the We'll Fix It team. Yes, it's been a couple weeks since we've done some content on this channel, but really busy behind the scenes. A lot of stuff moving around, moving big time. So, anyhow, what I wanted to do real quick was there's a customer likes to work on stuff himself. Super cool dude, but ran into a vehicle where he didn't have any information on how to do this job. I looked, because there's a lot of stuff on YouTube. I said, look a YouTube video up. I haven't done one, but there maybe is one. And what we're pertaining to is this alternator job on this Mitsubishi 3000 GT. Not a lot of these left running around on the road, but they are around, and there are people that are trying to get them back going. This one here, so needs an alternator, and the book time on the job isn't very much. It only gives like an hour and a half, maybe two, I think 2 hours, something like that. But anyhow, the man worked on it. He's like, I can't get the thing out of there. So he put it back together and brought it to me. Well, I'm going to walk you through how I'm doing this, and it's not as bad. You just got to go through a few steps. I do have a lift, but this can be done in the yard if you just properly, secure the vehicle, with whatever you see. Now, I use blocks and blocks of wood. I don't use jack stands on the dirt. But anyhow, let me flip the camera around, and I'll show you what I've done so far, and we'll see if this works. Okay. By the way, thank you for tuning in. Please like, subscribe, and share. Okay, so I have torn into it a little bit, and I said, you know what? I need to cut this video. So I have it on a lift, but you can do this in the yard with some basic stuff. What we're at now, here's the alternator, and I think that I can take this alternator out through this hole if I pull the CV axle out. And you're probably wondering what I've got going on here. That's my third hand, and that's something you can do on your own. Like when you want to get this lower control arm to come down without tearing the boot as well. A pickle fork is just going to eat that boot all up. And so I disconnected the sway bar so I can have full range of movement. And I'll pull that tie rod end off just so that I can move everything around and not be, and always watch your brake line. This one here had enough play where I can pull it off, but in other vehicles you might want to release the bracket for the brake line so you can not you don't want to stretch that. And what I've got here is just something pulling down whenever I would take my hammer and just hit right. I would hit on the part where the joint would go in at right here. Just jar that a couple of good times with that being pulled down, and it'll come loose, and then you don't have a torn boot. So then I just took my same hammer, and where the CV axle was, it was simple. I mean, went in there and just went up in here, and I just tapped on the back side of that. And that pops the CV axle out. And then now I'm getting somewhere. And what we're going to do is of course, remove the drive belt for it. And looks like that bracket will come off of there. Of course, you always want to disconnect your battery anytime you're working on the electrical system. Now, you'll notice I've got an oil pressure sending unit that's right underneath that alternator. We're going to go ahead and remove that as well because we don't want to damage that. That thing we need to keep that. So I'm going to take that out, and we're going to, that thing's made into that bracket. So I haven't done one of these in a long time, so we're walking through it together. But I think this is how this is going to go. So bear with me and hope for the best. All right, I'll be back and show you my progress. Moving along with this, I did remove this bolt right here so that I could just jack the motor up a little bit. I had to bring it up some, and I used this screw jack. But if you're in the yard doing this, a floor jack or one of those jacks that's in the trunk of your vehicle that you can slide underneath, you can put a block of wood right there on and so you don't damage your oil pan. And I just raised it up enough that matter of fact, that bracket, don't take that off. Just take the oil pressure sending unit out. And here is the unit that needs to be replaced. It's not an old unit, but for some reason it's not working. I tested the main wire. It's got power on it. The customer has bought his own alternator and instructed me to install it. And so at this point, this is the best, I guess, the most effective way to see what's going to happen. So let's flip this here camera around. Just for a second. You can look at me for a minute. So that's pretty much how this thing came out. And we'll do the install in reverse order. But I had to take the CV axle out, get this camera right, take the CV axle out, pull the top motor mount out, and then jacked the motor up probably maybe 2 inches, came right out. So that's successful. So now we're going to go ahead and actually get everything swapped over, get the new alternator in, and then we're going to see what happens. Now there's some funny thing is when people work on stuff themselves, always bolts missing. Bolts are loose. I've got to go around and check everything. So that's always something you want to, whenever, if somebody's worked on something before you got it, don't be confident that everything was put back together. This thing was kind of limped up here, so I got to put a bunch of stuff back. Okay, guys, thank you for tuning in to We'll Fix It team. Y'all have a wonderful, wonderful weekend, and hopefully this fixes it. And I'm out. Take it easy, y'all.